Hey everybody, welcome to FL Teams Live. It's Wednesday night, so you know where you should be here watching your favorite sports coverage. Uh, with me, as always, it seems at least, Andrew Eshman of the Jag Roar podcast. Thank you for joining us, Andrew.
Yeah, no worries, man. Glad to be here. Lots of exciting stuff going on in the sports world.
Yeah, for sure. And I got to shout out the Jag Roar podcast. Check out his interview he had with Jamal Agnew this past week on his YouTube channels, where they can check that out. Right?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. It was fun. We got Jamal on the show, and he had a lot of interesting things to say. We kind of caught up about his injury that he experienced in week 11, which was kind of which looked pretty traumatic, but actually turned out not to be as bad. So that's a plus. And talked about obviously the kick six, which was pretty exciting that he had against the Cardinals, and just about how he got to the NFL. So um, it was really exciting. So check that out on the YouTube channel, Jamal Agnew interview, Jaguar
Awesome.
podcast. Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me. I'm, of course, your host, Jeff Macolino. I host Bolts and Bats in the Bay here on FL Teams. Both teams in high gear. We'll touch a little bit on that. First, shout out to our sponsor, our good friends over at Symbol. Symbol is the stock market for sports that allows you to trade sports teams like stocks and earn cash payouts when your teams win. Symbol has blended sports and the stock market to offer you a new way to invest in and profit off your favorite teams. Use your sports knowledge to buy low, sell high, and earn cash payouts when your teams win. Join the thousands of early adopters who have started to profit off their sports knowledge. Visit www.simbull.com. Visit the link in the description. Create a free account, and when you deposit, make sure you use the promo code FLTeams for a $10 deposit bonus to help build your portfolio. I need to get on there and collect some of my Rays win payouts on Symbol.
Nice.
Let's get started. We got a few topics for today, but I guess might as well start kind of to recap the first thing we talked about last week, which was Tiger Woods coming back from the Masters. I think the general consensus was if he just made the cut and played all 4 rounds of the tournament, it was impressive as it was. I would say he kind of spoiled us and maybe raised expectations beyond what we should have had after an excellent first round. He did make the cut. Really, he entered the weekend. I think he was tied for 19th. He definitely, you could see the fatigue and the limping on Saturday and Sunday. But shout out to Tiger Woods for making the comeback, and hopefully, obviously we don't expect to see him on a week by week basis, but hopefully he can at least get out there, at least the majors, maybe another couple tournaments a year. Did you get a chance to watch any of his highlights or his game, Andrew?
No, I didn't, but I saw some of the highlights with Scheffler and Rory McIlroy. Kind of they had something going there, and I mean it was an exciting Masters. I mean there was some amazing shots there by McIlroy. I think he hit like a really insane bunker shot. I want to say it was like, yeah, it was like I mean, he got out of the bunker and it was like, what was it, like a 16-foot, roll after that? I mean, it was insane, and it just went in there. And was it M who hit the other one too? He hit like a same type of shot there, and it went in as well. So they were both kind of celebrating. That was really cool to watch.
Yeah, Rory, little too little, a little too late. He shot an amazing 64 on the final day, and he finished second. But Scheffler really had this thing in control. Even going into Saturday, it was. I remember my son asked me how Tiger Woods was. I said he's only 4 shots out of second place, but he's 8 or 9 or 10 out of first place. So unless that guy collapses, he's not winning.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to Tiger for, with everything he's been through with the back injuries, the car crash he had, and just, I mean, golf is it's so hard on your back, and it's kind of delicate too. You got to master your swing. Everything's kind of got to be in order there for you to be playing well. And he manages to get into the Masters and play competitively. I mean, that's impressive, especially, after all he's been through.
Yeah. No, it was a little painful to watch him late Saturday and a lot of the day Sunday. You could see he was laboring quite a bit. But he brought that energy that just isn't there without him. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's ever going to be there without him. But he definitely impressive just to again just making the cut to me is a pretty big deal that kind of gets overlooked. And really, also, I will say, because I think I stopped watching his final round about halfway through because it actually was, I don't know, it was actually somewhat disturbing to me, just feeling sympathy pain for him. But his putter really betrayed him a lot. I mean, he had a 4-putt double bogey at one point, and 3 of those putts were within like 6 feet of the hole. He had a rough go with the putter. The good news is I thought his short game was excellent. He was pretty good off the tee. He started not hitting them quite as far, but he was still getting most of the fairways, most of the tournament. So I thought as far as his actual golf game, if he could get the putting side of things cleaned up a little bit, I would be surprised, given his personality and his drive, if he doesn't win a tournament at some point before he, goes into the kind of the just here for show kind of stage of his career.
Yeah, I was watching like an interview that Graham Messenger did with Daly, and Daly was saying his putting game kind of fell apart too, and it makes me think of what you said, right, with Tiger Woods. Man, it's such a, you have to be so focused, and like the mental part of putting, I feel like can just psych you out so much. And I mean, not to mention all the other stuff that Tiger's thinking about, right? He's thinking about his body. He's thinking about, his back and his swing, and not to mention just the strategy. There are so many things going on probably in his head that putting could probably really psych you out, in these type of tournaments.
Yeah, and hopefully getting this one out of the way just for his sake, and who knows, next time we'll see him, but hopefully, that this helps clear his head a little bit, because Augusta is allegedly, I've never walked it, but according to the broadcasters, it is one of the toughest courses to walk. So hopefully getting that kind of out of the way, maybe he'll be even better next time we see him, which I think they said at least he plans on playing the British Open. So
Yeah, I mean, it's insane to think, like, I mean, I think of this, this tournament being a confidence builder, the Masters. I mean, can you think of saying that to somebody? It's like, oh yeah, I play in the Masters, it's just, it's a confidence builder. But I mean, that kind of tells you where Tiger Woods is as a player. I mean, it's just amazing what he's doing, even with all the adversity he's faced.
yeah, truly. Anytime we see him, we should be grateful that he's just able to get out there and do it at all.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we'll be keeping an eye on him as his the golf season, so to speak, progresses. And a brand new season starting. We, of course, have talked about it the last couple weeks. Baseball opening day was just late last week. The Rays, just starting local here, the Tampa Bay Rays going into tonight, tied with the best record in all of baseball, 5 games in. And to be fair, the first 3 games were against the Baltimore Orioles, who the Rays just don't lose to. I mean, they were 18-1 against them last year, and they just picked up right where they left off, a pretty clean and easy sweep. I will say the thing that jumps out that is a little scary for the Rays is right off the bat, 2/5 of their rotation is injured. Luis Patino only got 1 out on Monday. I'm mixing up my days in my head now. He got 1 out on Monday. He's out. They've moved him to the 60-day injured list. So, I mean, he's out a substantial amount of time. He was a young pitcher who the Rays were hoping could step in and do some things. And Ryan Yarborough, who was, a lot of people were on the fence about him making the rotation. He made it, didn't get to make his first start. They call up Tommy Romero, who made his major league debut, and it did not go well. The Rays still were able to pull out a comeback victory where they had to come back a couple times and win in extra innings. So the Rays 4-1 start. Wander Franco and G-Man Choi are on amazing tears at the plate. The fielding looks excellent, as you'd expect. The pitching looks great against Baltimore, but not so great so far in the first couple games against Oakland. And again, and also JT Chargois, who is a relief pitcher who the Rays are going to rely on to eat a lot of innings in important situations. He also went on the injured list. So 5 days and 2 starters and a bullpen pitcher down for the Rays. Not encouraging for a team that already had a lot of pitching injuries going into the season. So we'll see if the Rays offense can kind of boost the rest of the club. And then just to quickly touch on the Miami Marlins, and I said this, Miami starting a 5-game swing on the West Coast to start the season, not a great scenario to be in, I don't think. And
yeah, you were right about that. I mean, I think you hit that nail right on the head in terms of just that's a tough opener when you're on, an East Coast team like Florida, or excuse me, the Miami Marlins, and then you go out to the West Coast. That's kind of a tough thing to wrap your head around in terms of just getting adjusted to the time change, and you're off a little bit,
Yeah, and even even looking at the schedule, this was obviously supposed to be the second week of the season, but that's still a rough thing to travel across the country. Start in Miami, travel across the country. They lost. They're 1-4, and 3 of those games were 1-run losses to the Giants and then to the Angels. So 1-run losses, you like to hope that they kind of equal out over the course of a season, but they all add up, whether they're game 1 through 6 or game 162. So the Marlins hopefully can rebound. Their home opener is tomorrow against the Phillies, and our fearless leader should be leading the cheers on in the stands for those Marlins.
Like you mentioned 1-run loss. I mean, that's in addition to like the journey you're making over to the West Coast to lose by 1 run. I mean, it's just kind of, I'm not going to say it's like going to affect their entire season, but it's kind of a confidence killer, right? I mean, you lose by, that close of a score. It just, I don't know. I think they'll bounce back. I think, it's early in the season, like you said. But that's tough. I mean, I think it's tough too for the Rays, right? Like you mentioned, because, they're a defensive team. I mean, they have great pitching staff, good, fielders, and, they have what was it? 2 pitchers that went down there that you mentioned.
Two starters. Yeah.
2 starters. I mean, that's huge for them. I mean, so do you think they're going to have to kind of go deep into the farm, system, pull somebody up maybe?
Yeah, I'm curious. So Josh Fleming, who pitched very effectively in relief in game 2, he's just getting bumped into being a starter at this point. He was kind of the last man out of the rotation and into the bullpen. They knew he was going to make the team, but he was hoping, I think, to be a starter. So he'll kind of slide in there. He's a sinker ball pitcher who is usually very efficient with his pitches, which is going to be very useful for the Rays, since luckily the rosters are expanded for a while. So they shouldn't really have too much strain on their bullpen. But, again, you're when you start Romero, who should have a bright future, the kid who started yesterday, it was not good. He did not look ready, I would say, to pitch in the major leagues. And you don't like to put a guy out there in a circumstance like that, because I think that kind of what you were saying with confidence, I think that can really kill a guy's confidence real quick if they arrive a little before they should and they struggle. He cleaned up. I mean, he ended up going 1 2/3 innings and giving up 3 runs yesterday. So he kind of got a little bit better after giving up a 3-run home run in the first inning. He couldn't close out the second inning. So again, I'm assuming he's going to be making another couple starts, and hopefully they go a little bit better. Because I don't think, even though the Rays offense has a lot of potential 1 through 9, they're not a team built to they're not a team built to fall behind and come back constantly.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And last night, speaking about, the Braves, which of course are not a Florida team, but Bryce Elder had his first start last night, and they just annihilated the what was it, the Nats? I think it was what they won 16-4. That was pretty big win there. But like you said, with the Marlins just having a slow start, the Braves kind of had a slow start there too. I think you can't put too much weight into the first couple games. I mean, I feel like the management's kind of feeling out the roster, feeling out who they have in terms of personnel. You have injuries, like you said, and maybe they bring somebody up. Maybe the Rays bring somebody up from the farm system. So how long are those two pitchers out for in terms of the injury?
I haven't heard with Yarborough anything specific, but obviously at least 10 days. His is retroactive, so if it's a minor thing, presumably he'll miss one start, I guess, because it's retroactive to opening day. Patino, though, was moved to the 60-day disabled list, which, when they initially reported the injury, it did not seem like something that was going to be months on the shelf. But, they move him that quickly to the 60-day injured list.
You're thinking it's pretty serious.
Yeah, I mean, you're taking him out of action for 2 months. Right off the bat, that makes me think they're shutting him down for at least half that time. Now, he's young. They were already concerned about his load going into the season because he just hasn't pitched that many innings.
Right.
So maybe that plays into it too, is, hey, here's a way we can make sure we're not as strict on his innings when we're winding down the season and going into the playoffs.
Now, was this like a Tommy John kind of injury, or was this like something else?
No, it's not supposed to be. It's one of those. Let me see if they announced, if they gave any more details today. I don't believe that they did. No, and Yarborough, by the way, he was left groin, so I assume that that's not major. It was he didn't hurt himself in a game. But yeah, I haven't seen anything specific. I don't believe it's anything season ending though for Patino from, again, initial reports, but I didn't think from the initial reports that he was going to be missing 60 days either. Yeah, it's interesting. And that actually brings up another story that I saw that I believe was just from a little bit ago, is that Clayton Kershaw got pulled during a perfect game after 7 innings today, just because his pitch count was getting up there, and they had that shortened spring. I was very curious. You always hope it's not your team that gets in that scenario where it's like, all right, well, he hit his pitch count. I don't care if he has a no-hitter or a perfect game. We're not going to ruin our season trying to get him I mean, it's a big deal, but it's not it's not worth sacrificing a whole season for. So I wonder with some of it if it is, babying the pitchers a little bit. And I don't say babying in a derogatory, inflammatory way. I mean, if there's anything minor wrong at this point in time, let's shelf you here. Make sure you're healthy before you come in. I think the Rays are pretty confident in their depth, their bullpen depth, their farm system depth. And he reached 80 pitches. It's kind of funny with Kershaw. You'd think, being an older guy, he'd be able to maybe say, look, I know my arm, I can keep going.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like, that, what's interesting is like how focused a lot of these teams, and this is even like football too, how focused a lot of these teams have gotten on analytics. and like pitch count, like you said, and like they'll, but it goes to right to your point, right? Like they're focused on pitch count, or what was he, 70 pitches? You said he was 70 pitches
80.
and 80 pitches,
80.
yeah, and they pulled
And it
him.
looks like you said it was the right decision in the post game quotes here that Isaac was able to pull up for us.
Yeah, I mean
that might just be the veteran thing to say, I suppose.
well, it's like I think maybe their mindset is like it's a marathon, not a sprint. So why waste him early in the season? Potentially finishing out that perfect game, but him suffering an injury like later on. So maybe they're just kind of taking the long haul approach.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, look, the Dodgers aren't the only thing they want this year is another World Series. They're not looking to make the playoffs. They're not looking to. They have higher goals.
Yeah,
and frankly, I think they will need Clayton Kershaw in the playoffs, pitching. The way.
Yeah,
pitching well, exactly. You don't want him. I think of even the way Corey Kluber, who pitched his first game with the Rays and did pretty well, but last year he was kind of up and down with the Yankees because his arm was always iffy.
right.
Yeah, veteran pitchers, you worry more about long-term issues with young pitchers, but veteran pitchers, they don't heal as quickly either from some of these little things that aren't season-ending, but they can drag on a little bit.
Yeah. So do you see the Rays making any moves before the trade deadline? And I mean, I know we mentioned the farm system, them maybe possibly bringing up a pitcher or two, but do you see them kind of going into, maybe bringing somebody in?
I'm guessing, and I'm not totally on board with who is still out there in the free agent market. I'm guessing they're looking pretty closely and targeting a couple guys. I don't think they'll make a move anytime immediately, unless things fall apart. I mean, if it looks like 40% of their rotation is just going to be garbage, they won't let things go on too long before they make a move. I guarantee you this with the Rays is they've got a stack this big of pitchers and hitters who they're targeting, and they're monitoring their health and their pitch counts and everything probably as closely as some of their own players. And again, it's, the Rays are smart. They're going to have their list of guys who are in other organizations that they think they'll be sellers at an early point in the season. Maybe the Marlins. Sorry, Isaac. They'll also start targeting guys if they think they need to definitely add a starting pitcher, or they may just try to add a guy in the bullpen who can eat 3-4 innings. This is the team that kind of invented that opener. And they also have, for, I think it's been about a decade now since they've started having bullpen days where they, just are starting pitchers, a guy who's going to pitch 2 innings, and then the next relief pitcher is going to come in, and we don't have a starter today. And Isaac posting up a few of the top free agents out there, and I don't know if the Rays might have some interest. The Rays know what they're looking for in a pitcher. I never got the secret formula when I worked there as to what exactly they're looking for in a pitcher, but they know. So if any of those guys fits the mold that they're looking for, they'll be signed relatively soon. If Romero goes out there in 4 days and he, doesn't do his job, then they'll be bringing someone in or bringing someone up. They do have a lot of pitchers though that are on the mend who, will be part of the rotation when they come back, like Yanni Chirinos, and Shane Baz, who's one of the top pitching prospects in all of baseball, who was going to be in the rotation initially, but he got injured, and that's supposed to be a minor thing, but he'll probably be out till May or June. So I don't think, by the same token, I don't think they want to go out and grab a Tyler Clippard and say, in 4 weeks, we got our guys back. Bye. I mean, they might, but I don't know that he'd want to sign here, knowing that that's a possibility.
Yeah.
So I think they'll see if they start to drift in the standings a little bit. They'll be aggressive to fill their needs if they need, if they think they need to.
Yeah. No, I think they will, and it sounds like they have their head around the pitching kind of aspect of the team. So, they might be able to bring somebody up from the farm system, right? And then you just have to spend less money. So that's a good situation to be in.
Yeah, and luckily the offense looks pretty potent at this point of the season. Brandon Lau's starting to he's got a couple home runs in the last few games, and Wander Franco and G-Man Choi are hitting near 600 coming into play tonight. Wander Franco, that guy is otherworldly. He is going to be, and defensively too, he is going to be so fun to watch for Rays fans and for just fans of baseball over the next 2 decades maybe. So
yeah,
he's so young, it's something else. So hey, I wanted to talk to you, and one thing I'll throw a teaser in here for is in 13 days, FL Teams is going to be broadcasting a spectacular mock draft, NFL mock draft. That is, we will have every team represented, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Be sure to check that out. That'll be the Tuesday before the NFL draft. So just to tease that here. But I did see reports, and obviously I feel like you might know something about the Jaguars, just a hunch, that the report I saw, and this was on NFL Network, I believe, is that nobody is interested in trading up to the number 1 pick with the Jaguars, which I don't know if that's surprising or not. It's the first time that I think I've ever actually heard that nobody wants to trade to the number 1 pick. There's not even anyone sniffing about just in case. I think part of that goes to that nobody's picking a quarterback number 1. I think that's a large part of it. Is it? I mean, do you think if teams were interested, do you think the Jags would be trying to trade down out of that spot since they do presumably have their franchise quarterback?
It's gotten interesting. I mean, the question is, it depends. I mean, I think I still see the Jaguars going heavy offensive line here. I see them picking Evan Neal at number 1. The wide receiver room is pretty crowded right now for us. We picked up a lot in free agency, whether you liked it or not as a Jaguars fan. I mean, it's a crowded wide receiver room. Especially, people forget about Jamal Agnew, as we mentioned in the beginning of this. He's a wide receiver as well, and will be a piece of that offense. But defensively, I think we're okay. I mean, I think a lot of people are talking about Aiden Hutchinson and Trayvon Walker and Kayvon Thibodeau and I think we really just need to restructure the offensive line. I'm all about building the offensive line up. If we can, I mean, we have Cam Robinson. He has, he did today accepted the franchise tender, so we could trade him. As deal him off in the draft, maybe. Some people have been talking about Panthers being one of the teams that he may get dealt to for their number 6 pick. So I was thinking, if I put my GM hat on, maybe give them Cam Robinson, a 6th round pick, and Caleb Chason, give them a defensive player as well. Some people have mentioned that too, that we only have $8 million in cap for rookie contracts. So I see, actually, if that's true, I didn't get a chance to dig deep into that and verify it. But if that is true, I see the Jaguars, trading Cam Robinson for maybe another 1st round pick. And if they got the number 6 pick, I would go for somebody like, Jermaine Johnson. I think Jermaine Johnson's a sleeper defensive end. I mean, I watched a lot of his film. This guy has so many tools. He can, he's got a lot of really good technique with rip moves and spin moves, and he can run, each side of the field. Great pursuit guy, can pass rush, good against the run. I think a lot of people are sleeping on him. I mean, I'm not saying that Aiden Hutchinson or Trayvon Walker are going to be bad picks, but I think for the Jaguars defense, he just brings so much to the table, and I think he'll probably fall a little bit lower, probably like like I said, maybe 6, maybe 8. And then if I'm the Jaguars, I'm making some more moves, maybe trying to get a linebacker. Maybe I'm making a move, maybe trading away maybe some of our third round picks or a first next year to get Nakobe Dean, who's really somebody we should be targeting because we have a huge gap at weak side linebackers. So that's just a few of my thoughts. Sorry, I went on a tangent there, but
no, that's that's good.
Yeah, that's kind of where I hope the Jaguars are going.
Well, and Evan Neal makes sense to me from kind of the philosophy that they seem to have laid out in free agency, which is we want to surround Trevor Lawrence with talent. Now, you can question some of the guys whether they got the most talented or just a talent of some level.
Yeah.
And that's not to disparage Christian Kirk and Zay Jones. Zay Jones had a nice season last year with the Raiders, and Christian Kirk has potential. But again, it wasn't Tyreek Hill they added. But it makes sense from that perspective. You want to surround him with talent. You also need to protect him. Priority number one is protect him. And Evan Neal, I hate to say it because I think back to probably the last offensive lineman in a draft I remember, and I was young back then, but I remember saying this guy's bust proof was Robert Gallery out of Iowa. And look, he actually had a decent career, but as a guard, he never really could make it as a left tackle in the NFL. And you don't want to pick a guard in a top pick in the draft, frankly. So I don't know. Do you think Jacksonville's fan base would be angry? I mean, an offensive lineman is not a sexy first round pick, especially in the top 10. Do you think they'd be okay with it?
I think they would. I mean, I think we picked Tony Baselli at number 2, who's the number 2 pick in the first round. I'm not saying at all that Evan Neal will be a Tony Baselli, or maybe he will be. I mean, I hope he is, right? Like that would be my hope. I don't think it's bad to pick, an offensive lineman in the first round. There's a lot of fans rather that think, it's just not a sexy pick for them. I mean, a lot of fans like the fantasy and they want to see, fantasy football, and they want to see offensive players, and a lot of Jaguars fans want to draft on defense. They want Aiden Hutchinson, and they want wide receivers, which I just don't understand at this point because, the wide receiver room is just so crowded. And what are you going to do about Laviska Shenault, right? He's the other wide receiver. That's kind of the question mark there. Does he get traded? Does he get, does he get cut? Who knows? But I think offensive line, we've ignored it too many times in our drafts. For the past 2 years, we should have drafted, 2 years before the last draft, we should have, addressed the left tackle position. We've just been putting it off too long. So I feel like we need to go hard on offensive line for this draft.
Yeah, and I think again, it's not sexy to people, but even look at the Bucs. I know Tom Brady gets all of the credit, all of the praise, but the difference in that offensive line with getting, Ali Marpet, who's retired, but Tristan Wirfs they drafted early. They solidified that offensive line to protect a quarterback, and that makes a big difference. I mean, enough can't be said about that, and that's. I even always say, just thinking about my team, the Saints, right now, since they lost to Ron Armstead to Miami, a great player, but they could have paid him, and they didn't want to match the offer. James Hurst right now would be slated to be the starting left tackle, and he's a very good player. He started at 4 different offensive line positions. He's just as solid as he gets. He was a starter in Baltimore. When the Saints signed him to a 1-year deal a couple of years ago, I said that's a championship signing to get a 6th lineman who can start without any drop off or substantial drop off at 4 different positions on the offensive line. To me, I think you should always have 6 or 7 starting offensive linemen in the building. And it's amazing. There's a lot of teams that I don't think have 3 that are quality NFL starters. And I think the teams that tend to win more are the teams who have a 6th guy who can step in at multiple positions, maybe a 7th guy. So if you're missing some of your offensive line, you're not playing somebody who's just going to be a turnstile out there who's going to get your quarterback killed and shut down your running game in the backfield. And I again, it's not sexy because when they show the highlights of the number 1 pick, people want to see sacks or interceptions or touchdowns or long fancy runs or deep passes. They don't want to see pancake blocks.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and you were talking about, you mentioned something that was a really great point. Like, when was the last time we took an offensive lineman in the first round? And I was thinking, Tony Baselli was number 2, but the other one I was thinking of was Orlando Pace, who was who played for the Rams, who was really good. So I mean, maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. I hope it does. But I grew up kind of like with my dad was a big Washington fan, and he loved the Hogs and the front, just a real nasty front 5 with Bostic and Jacoby and I feel like we need to go back to that kind of smash mouth football mentality, and we have the personnel to do that. I mean, we got James Robinson, we got Trevor Lawrence, and it'll help take some of the pressure, I think, off of Trevor Lawrence, because I think this is going to be, again, like his first season, man. Last season was kind of a wash for me. I think with Urban Meyer, it was kind of like, this is going to be a do-over. It's still going to be a big learning curve. It's going to be a new offense for him. So, it'll be interesting to see, but I hope we beef up that offensive line.
Yeah, I do too. Just from a perspective of, I do think Lawrence is a franchise quarterback and an extremely good talent. And I always think with David Carr, I always thought he never got a real shot because they just got him killed back there. And I'm not saying he's as good as Trevor Lawrence by any means, or, well, obviously not now. He's not. He's like 50. But I'm not saying that he was ever that talented, but he had a lot of talent, and boy, he had no prayer of getting anything done behind what Houston put in front of him. So I don't want to see that with Trevor Lawrence, because I'm not even a Jaguars fan, and I'm angry at the idea that they basically wasted his rookie season, which you only control your first round picks for 5 years guaranteed.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, now you got 3 years of them, maybe. The whole thing's a mess, and they've mismanaged it so badly. They definitely owe him protection, at least, so that he can hopefully get something going.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want him to turn into an Andrew Luck, right? Too, like, where he has like maybe a couple good seasons and then he's so beat up, he's like, screw this, I'm done. It's not worth it anymore. So, that, and they have James Robinson too, who's like diamond in the rough, right? Like, he's, you don't want to see that guy walk away from the Jaguars, but I don't know. It's like you said, you got to manage it right.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We're only 15 days away from the NFL draft. So exciting time in every sport. I had one other thing we were going to touch on, but I'm thinking we should hold off on this until we get Jeremiah in here to give us the full inside scoop from the Dolphins' perspective with this whole Tom Brady to Miami thing. Like, at the very least,
this was about him being like in part of the ownership, right? Like,
yeah. So the rumor was, according to some reports, he allegedly he retired from the Bucs. He was going to buy into the Dolphins to be a minority owner, become a high-level front office executive, unretire, come back and play for the Dolphins, and they were going to hire Sean Payton. First they'd have to trade for Sean Payton, which that would have cost the Dolphins would not have Tyreek Hill if they had to trade for Sean Payton. I can tell you that much. The Saints would have your first round picks for 3 years if you want him. Yeah. So there's that. And by the way, Dolphins fans who think this is going to happen next year, the Saints are still not going to let Sean Payton just sign away easy. They still have his rights for a few years. They don't have to let him go anywhere. They're going to need at least a first-round pick, especially since they traded their first-round pick next year to Philadelphia. So just a side note on that. And Brady is free after this year if he does want to go down to Miami. We'll see. If it all falls through, if nothing else, the rumor will be one of those great what ifs in sports that you can talk about at a bar for hours about what if Tom Brady didn't go back to the Bucs. Bruce Arians would coach Kyle Trask for the Bucs. Sean Payton and Tom Brady down in Miami. Who knows what happens. The Dolphins on the losing end of some of those what if scenarios, like not signing Drew Brees in 2006, teaming him up with Nick Saban. That also could have been interesting dynasty, having a defensive coach with Drew Brees. But, the Dolphins don't have their luck right with quarterbacks. My buddy who is a Dolphins fan swears there's a Dan Marino curse, but we'll have to check with Isaac and Jeremiah for their thoughts on that one.
Yeah, well, we know what happens to the Dolphins when they play the Jaguars in the playoffs, especially back in '99 where we retired Marino and what was it, Jimmy Johnson. So what was that, like a 63-7 or something?
That was
Yeah.
fun to watch because I wasn't a Dan Marino fan, but I probably shouldn't.
Yeah,
probably shouldn't admit that. Well, I guess the Jaguars are a Florida team. I'm good.
yeah. It's it was a fun game to watch, and then of course against Tennessee was we were humbled a little bit after that loss in the playoffs. So, but hopefully we can get back there.
Yeah. Well, I think that will about wrap it up here for FL Teams Live. Join us every Wednesday night. We will be here, including next Wednesday. And then again, remember to mark your calendars off for the following Tuesday. That is April 26th. We will have the mock draft, and we'll be back the next day with FL Teams Live on the 27th. And then the next day is the draft. So, you'll get all the coverage you need Tuesday and Wednesday prior to the draft right here on FL Teams. So stay tuned. Subscribe to FL Teams everywhere on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, probably some other things. YouTube, that's a big one.
Yeah.
And again, remember to check out Andrew Eshman, the Jag Roar podcast. Check out his interview with Jamal Agnew and check out the rest of his stuff too, not just that. But that was a fun thing to see this past week. And hey, you can catch my Bolts and Bats in the Bay podcast, which will probably be shifting to Mondays now that baseball season is in full swing. So just a side note on all of those obsessive Bolts and Bats in the Bay fans that are watching us here.
Yeah, and check out Jeff's podcast too, the Jeff Macolino podcast. If you're a comedy fan, just love his commentary. Check it out, man. It's good stuff.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, try to have fun. And I also you can check out my YouTube. I tried the air, land, and sea burger from McDonald's, and I'm still alive.
That's good. That's good. McDonald's, who knows? It's hit or miss with McDonald's. So
yeah, if you want to see me chew something large and disgusting for 5 minutes, check it out. All right, folks, that'll do it for FL Teams Live. Remember to go to flteams.com for all your best Florida sports news and coverage. Peace.